SCP-055 is perhaps one of the biggest mysteries in the Foundation. This is because this object cannot be remembered, and anyone who is exposed to 055 will forget all relevant information. So what is SCP-055, and where does it come from? In this video, we try to answer these questions. Also, if you enjoy our videos, then please subscribe with notifications. You won't miss any of our uploads, and you would help the channel a lot by doing so. Let's begin with the description. SCP-055 is a self-keeping secret, or an anti-meme, meaning that all information about its nature will immediately self-classify. It is contained within Site-19, inside of a 15 by 15 by 8 foot room constructed of thick cement walls, with a Faraday cage surrounding it. Access to SCP-055 is possible via a heavy containment door measuring 6 by 8 feet in size. Also, security guards are not to be posted outside of SCP-055's container, probably because they will forget what they're guarding and leave anyway. And finally, it is advised that all Foundation personnel within the site maintain a distance of at least 150 feet from 055's container, probably because the object's anti-memetic properties activate within this radius. And of course, how SCP-055 appeared inside of Site-19, why its containment chamber was constructed in this way, and what the purpose of its containment procedures is totally unknown. But this doesn't mean that 055 is indescribable or invisible. To the contrary, individuals are perfectly capable of entering SCP-055's container and observing it, taking notes, making sketches, or even photographs. As such, an extensive log of such observations already exists. However, these logs are totally useless, because anyone who looks at these records will soon forget everything, not to mention that all of the people who have seen SCP-055 in person have long forgotten their encounter. For example, individuals tasked with describing 055 after viewing it will lose interest in their task. Individuals tasked with sketching a copy of a photograph of 055 are unable to remember what the photograph looked like, and security personnel who have observed the object via CCTV cameras return effectively amnesiac. All of these facts are periodically rediscovered by a scientist, usually by chance, causing a great deal of alarm. However, this state of concern usually lasts minutes at most before the matter is simply forgotten about. And as for SCP-055's classification, it is designated Keter class because 055 could very well present a major physical threat and no one would know. This is also supported by the fact that at least one attempt has been made to terminate 055, which was met with failure. So as we see, despite extensive documentation, there has been very little progress, but still, a few scientists learned that it is possible to remember what SCP-055 is not and to deduce its existence using negation. However, so far, the only thing we know is that it isn't round. Of course, given its nature, there are many theories about its origin. Some people believe that 055 is the result from an anomalous test which subsequently became a cognito hazard. Others believe that the actual anomaly is the containment chamber, which causes people to believe that it contains a mysterious object. But the most famous theory is that 055 is an alien drone, which was inserted at Site-19 in order to silently observe and interfere with the Foundation, or even humanity as a whole. However, it quickly becomes apparent that we won't be able to reveal SCP-055's real nature, at least using this document. We will have to find something else. Playing God is an SCP tale consisting of a letter. This letter is written by a Foundation scientist and is aimed at his colleagues, with the goal of explaining his story. He begins by stating that when he first walked the spiral path, he never thought that they would manage to break space and time in so many ways. he continues, stating that they've created something unthinkable and that there's a lot more to be done, so he wishes them good luck. However, he also reveals that the purpose of this letter isn't to motivate them, but rather to inform them of the success of his experiment. He begins by explaining his reasoning, stating that he has always concerned himself with the secrecy at the Foundation. After all, their work is so classified that once you start working for the Foundation, you must remain there all your life. This made him nervous, and he wanted to cover his tracks because he didn't want to be punished for advancing human knowledge, and so did all of his colleagues. So they started working together, arranging reports and falsifying documents. But this wasn't enough. He needed to make sure that no one would ever find him, and soon he came up with an incredible idea. What if he could erase himself from official existence, and not in the context of ending his life, but rather in the sense of wiping himself from official documents as if he never existed at all. So he began to work, but it wasn't easy. In fact, he says it was very dangerous, and he even constructed a Faraday cage around his lab for protection due to the volatile nature of his experiment. But eventually he finished, and he made it look as if he never existed at all. The first sign of success was when his own brother walked into the room and was surprised to see him. So he went to the cafeteria and saw that people were trying to figure out why there was a Faraday cage in the facility. But when he checked the official documents, he saw that his own room had been classified as an SCP, and this is when he realized that he didn't erase himself from official documents, he had erased himself from existence. People came into his laboratory to take photographs, to talk to him, to figure out who he was, and of course, his colleagues didn't recognize him at all, so he continued his work. He created and tested more anomalous objects and put them into containment, and naturally, his colleagues were constantly wondering where these new SCPs came from. But at this point, he started to realize what he had become. The original idea behind the Foundation was discovery, to use the knowledge from the spiral path and see what would happen if they bent the laws of physics. However, this quickly changed when anomalies they didn't create started to appear all around the world. And of course, many of them realized how dangerous this was and instead focused on containment. But some of them, for example the writer of this document, didn't change in the slightest. In fact, this scientist says that after bending the laws of physics so many times, he started to feel like a god. For example, he classified himself as Keter in order to see how everyone would react. He even told everyone that he isn't round, just as a joke. But at some point, he got bored of making SCPs, so he started to manipulate people as well. He talked to high-ranking researchers, telling them about how they can make SCPs, market them for profit, or even destroy them. And when they left, they forgot the encounter, but the ideas remained. However, the writer doesn't appear to be ashamed of his nature and gladly embraces the fact that he can brainwash anyone. In fact, he even calls the Foundation researchers pawns, created for the sole purpose of testing his control. He explains that he even organizes containment breaches in order to test his own creations. Also, he acknowledges the fact that he might seem evil, but says that gods do not adhere to the same moral code as insects. And finally, he signs off with his name, Aaron Siegel, and with his credentials, 05-5, which seems to match the number of our SCP quite well. As such, this man not only claims to be SCP-055, but also provides a backstory which matches the description quite well. But in the end, as with any mysterious SCP, it is still a matter of headcanon, and 055 could very well be a leak in a storage tank full of amnestics. If you enjoyed this video, then go watch our video about SCP-000, and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos.